Many of the world's nations, Canada is often the subject of gross stereotypes. One of the most sparsely populated places on the globe, Canada is often seen as a frozen wasteland of moose, mounties, and maple syrup. But beyond the funny accent, there are few better places on Earth to live, as Canadians consistently rate in the highest categories for quality of life. Number 7. Rat-free Alberta. Rats are a dreaded vermin the world over, spoiling billions of dollars worth of food supplies, spreading a laundry list of diseases, and even causing house fires from chewed wires. These creatures have infested the globe and dwell over nearly every inch of North America, except the Canadian province of Alberta. When rats threatened the eastern border of the province, shared with infested Saskatchewan, a perimeter was set up and staunchly defended. Alberta has even dedicated border guards who are responsible for protecting the border, carefully distributing poison, destroying derelict properties, and sometimes even digging rat burrows out with backhoes. Those rats which might be lucky enough to make it past this boundary are forced to contend with a rugged, often bitterly cold backcountry and sparse population density. Without warm human dwellings in which to take refuge, the rats freeze to death or succumb to predators. Thus far, Alberta remains free of rats. Even the white laboratory variety typically found in pet stores can only be kept by zoos. Number 6. The polar bear capital of the world. Churchill, Manitoba is a tiny village of less than 1,000 people on the shores of the Hudson Bay. Its bitter cold affords it a curious and sometimes dangerous resident: the polar bear. The bears gather near the town in autumn, waiting for the bay to freeze over. In the winter, they head out onto the ice, where they hunt their favorite prey, the ringed seal. There is a bear for every person in the town, and while they bring in a collection of tourists, life with giant carnivores loping down Main Street can be a little tricky. There are officers you can call specifically to deal with bothersome bears. Residences often come equipped with Churchill welcome mats, which are sections of plywood with nails sticking out. Bears intrepid enough to attempt breaking in will come away with bloody paws for their effort. The problem is so serious that most people leave their homes and cars unlocked to provide refuge in case someone is being chased. Number 5. Missing gravity. In the 1960s, when Earth's global gravity fields were being charted, scientists discovered an intriguing anomaly in Canada's Hudson Bay region. The difference is minuscule and undetectable by humans. There is about 1/10 of an ounce less of pressure on a 68-kilogram, 150-pound person. Research has continued for decades concerning this mystery, and in recent years, a pair of theories have been combined to provide a compelling answer. The first theory is that the molten rock in Earth's mantle, which is subject to currents similar to ocean currents, has shifted away from the area. The second theory is that during the last ice age, the Hudson Bay region was covered by a glacial shelf some 3.7 kilometers, 2.3 miles thick, which compressed the Earth and reduced its mass. The land is slowly rebounding, about a centimeter a year, and in another 5,000 years or so, everything should be back to normal. Number 4. Prostitution. When people think of the world's prostitution hotspots, cities like Amsterdam and Las Vegas immediately come to mind. But few would consider Canada, where prostitution is not and has never been illegal. But not so fast. While the transfer of money for sexual services is legal, many of the trappings of the profession are not. For instance, it is a crime to maintain, be employed by, or even enter a brothel. It is a crime to be a pimp. Perhaps most incomprehensible of all, it is a crime to communicate publicly regarding prostitution. Rules can differ wildly between provinces, and bills are constantly being brought before the nation's courts, with vocal supporters and detractors on either side. Number 3. Oil. Canada boasts vast natural resources. Above all, they are the United States' single largest supplier of oil, contributing more than all the nations of the Persian Gulf put together. Nearly 1 million barrels a day are exported south into the U.S. Much of the supply comes from the oil sands of central Alberta, a huge repository which may contain the equivalent of 2 trillion barrels. Separating the crude oil from the sand is an extremely labor-intensive process, requiring huge amounts of natural gas. The destruction of wide swaths of forest is an inevitable consequence of the mining, and large-scale deaths of birds and fish result from poisoned water. Number 2. McLobster. Easily the most infamous sandwich in the McDonald's repertoire is the McRib, a molded hunk of pork byproduct and a lot of bizarre preservatives. But along the eastern coast of Canada, and in a few select New England locations, an even more exotic sandwich makes the seasonal rounds: the McLobster. Available only in the summer when lobster is plentiful, the McLobster actually sounds quite appealing. Served on a soft roll, it is made with lobster, diced celery, and a light salad dressing. Probably due to the prohibitive costs, there are no imminent plans to expand the sandwich's territory. Number 1. Quebec independence. Today, the idea of Quebec seceding from Canada is seen by many as a pipe dream, along the lines of Puerto Rico becoming the 51st U.S. state. But in 1995, a referendum posed to Quebecois voters on whether they wanted to separate from Canada was defeated by just 1%, with 50.58% voting no and 49.42% voting yes. The result was met with a great deal of controversy, especially regarding the wording of the question, found by many to be unnecessarily complicated. Translated to English, the ballot asked, "Do you agree that Quebec should become sovereign after having made a formal offer to Canada for a new economic and political partnership within the scope of the bill respecting the future of Quebec and the agreement signed on June 12, 1995? Quebec began as a royal province of France, but was lost to the British in the French and Indian War, signed over in the Treaty of Paris in 1763. A quarter of a century later, tensions remained strong. The secessionist movement reached a brutal head in 1963 when the paramilitary group Front de Libération du Québec, FLC, began a campaign of terror, bombing, and attacking English businesses and institutions. In 1970, the group kidnapped James Cross, the British Trade Commissioner to Canada, and Pierre Laporte, a provincial minister and vice premier. Cross was eventually released in a prisoner trade, but Laporte was strangled to death with his own rosary beads. His corpse was later found in the trunk of an FLQ member's car. The murder forced Canadian Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau to invoke the War Measures Act, a sort of martial law to crush the revolt. Hundreds of arrests were made, and the FLQ was effectively destroyed. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, please let me know by clicking the like button. Do share, write a comment, and don't forget to subscribe so that you can catch up my next video.